welcome to the Coach Kyle Show.
Hi, wonderful people in the land of the living. Um, this is the Coach Kayode Show. Welcome again. I'm your host, Kayode Mckinnon. Um, if you're now joining the show, if you know, if you're now becoming acquainted with this live podcast, the Coach Kayode Show, every Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's good to have you. For those that are who show their constant um, support for this podcast. Um, it's good to have you here again. Um, please do share. But before I even say that, it's important for me to remind you as often as I can that greater is He that is in us than He that is in the world. And hopefully, the more times I say it, the more times it will be encoded. And at some point in time, you will begin to believe it because it's important. It's very important. And it is so important at this point in time more than ever because um, you are no longer respected or you are no longer appreciated for who you are, your uniqueness. You you have to fit, a certain mold. You have to look a certain way. You have to speak a certain way. Uh, you have to be a part of a common trend to be um, seen as important. More and more people are losing themselves, and they are losing what they've been blessed with to transcend their lives and to send them in the right trajectory, and they're giving themselves over to what is common. But so it's very important to remember that greater is He that is in us than he that is in the world. Greater is He who knew us before we were formed um, than those who want us to fit in to whatever they are doing. That is important. So that should tell you while this is a podcast that speaks all things soccer, because I'm a soccer guy. I love football. Is I believe that God blessed me with a gift, and I try to do my best, to use my gift to challenge people, to facilitate a process that brings about transformation in their lives, and to help them to encourage them, not help, don't like that word, but to encourage them and to inspire them to find their purpose, even if it's true the relationship of soccer or football. So the objective of this show um, is to inspire our young people, to help them to live out their purpose through our uncommon approach, our unscripted approach, and more so our authentic approach. So if you're that person who uh, playing sports, playing soccer, struggling to find your place, to find your joy, to find your peace, to find the excitement, to get that adrenaline, to move you forward in the direction that you want to go because of all the negativity and all the barriers and um, the mountain, the hills that has placed itself in front of you. I believe firmly that this show, you know, by God's grace, that it will inspire you, that it will encourage you to keep believing, keep believing in what you're doing. It's also a great time to really thank those who have been sharing. You know, it's nice to see that the message is, because the message is not um, to necessarily move uh, myself forward or this podcast, but it's to challenge people, it's to challenge their perspective and to give them an opportunity to look at things from a different standpoint and see if it brings some amount of fulfillment to their lives. So it's nice to see when people are sharing and they have encouraging words, and and that's what I keep my eyes on, the positivity, because there's always things to learn. You're never good at nothing. That's how I see things. You're never really good at nothing. You're never really at the level where you want to be. Your focus should always be about learning. If you trying too hard to accomplish a set thing, um, that very thing becomes also fear, because you also think about what happened if I don't get it. And when you are worried about when you if you don't get a thing, or if you're not that thing, then you're scared to make a step into the actual thing, because obviously um, there's too much doubts there. So the more I focus on intentionally learning and intentionally growing, then I'm I'm staying in my love and my passion for what I do, and nothing else is a distraction. The negativity is not a distraction. The lack thereof is not a distraction, because I am not focusing on those things. I am focusing on what is, I'm focusing intentionally on how and where I want to go, how I want to get there, and where I want to be, and what I should be doing. So every situation, every moment, every challenge is, um, I've learned over a period of time. I can say it was never always like that, because when you don't know and you don't know, you struggle to understand why things are happening, and 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 you want to ask all those why questions. Um, you want to say, well, how is this person this, and why this? You want to ask all those questions when you don't, at that moment, you don't respect your uniqueness. You don't respect that, this may be a journey that I really need to go on, so that I can learn, so that I can elevate to where um, God wants me to be. Your story can't be like everyone else. That means if your story can't be like everyone else, everything that is happening to someone else, you can't be envious, and um, you can't really ask the question, why is it happening to them and it's not happening to me? Because your process is totally different. You don't know what they're going through to get what they're getting. So why are you asking for it? I dare you to ask for Job's fate, and then you will know. I dare you. Say, I want the same fate as Job. Let's see if you're prepared to go through what he went through. For those who are biblical and and who understand that story, I don't think you would want to ask for that. And if you do ask for it, then maybe you're ready, you prepare for that. But if somebody don't know, then you should never say, I would like to have faith like Job, because what what Job was able to deal with, you don't know if you were made to deal with that. So it's very important that um, you are sure and you are uh, and assured that whatever you are going through, whatever you are dealing with, uh, it's a learning process for where you're supposed to be. It don't matter how difficult it is. It don't matter if you have a desire and you have a passion and you have a will to do what you believe is purposeful, then be ready for everything. It don't matter what it is. Whoever turn on you, family, friends, whoever talk bad about you, those that are close to you, those who are once close to you, it don't matter. It doesn't matter. If you sit down and you say, okay, I know who I am. This was a learning moment, then you're fine. Which you might wonder, okay, what are we going to be discussing tonight? Please let me know that you are here. It's always nice to know that you have a listening ear. Please do share. Um, Remember to subscribe to the channel, Kayode Mckinnon and Co. Via YouTube. And you can listen to this podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and hit that notification bell so that you know that we're on, you don't miss it, and you're able to share as much as you can so that more young people who are looking for something that is authentic within this frame would be able to come and will be able to attract those quality people that have something to say that could bring about transformation in the lives of our young people who might not have access on a day-to-day basis would need to have that opportunity. So we want to discuss, you have a right. You have a right. And you might say, what do you mean? And here we go again. You have a right. We're telling young people they have a right. We're telling young adults they have a right. Yes, you do. You have a right. I'm just going to discuss 3 important things that I believe that you have a right. You have a right to. And then we'll see where it goes and what it does when we come back from this quick break to introduce and reintroduce our KMXVI merch. Please do support. If you look to the side of the screen, there is a Cash App so that we could continue to do our work within the community, to continue to be a blessing to those who might be less fortunate in every way possible. This is what we're about. We're about service. We're about making sure that we are empowering people, empowering young people, encouraging them, inspiring them, and that they can be the best that God has created them to be. So, however you're led to do something, blessings to you 100-fold. But we'll be right back to dive into this discussion. Stay tuned.
Kayode Mckinnon and Company are ready to dress you in one of their most stylish, comfortable, and attractive athletic gears this fall for you to achieve that desired athletic goal. Check out their online store today for your joggers, tank tops, bras, backpacks, sweatshirts, and everything else you'll need to complete that look. It's Kayode Mckinnon and Company. We care.
Welcome back to the Coach Kayode Show. Kayode here. We're discussing um, you have a right. You have a right. Um, we all have a right, okay? We all have a right. And sometimes we all feel like we don't, based on circumstances, based on um, relationships, based on all these different things. You oftentimes feel like you don't have a right because maybe the law, maybe um, it may be people moral, what standings, maybe whatever. They you oftentimes feel like you don't have a right. And that right is not limited to, you know, what someone else truth is or what someone else thinks about you or what what is what what is their perspective on life and morals and all these things. You have a right. With that right comes great responsibility. With that right comes accountability. But it's still your right. You have a right. Um, God give you that right when He says, "Choose this day." To choose is to have the power to make your own decision. That means you have a right. What you do with that right is up to you. Because um, I remember the same God that saves is the same God will judge. Hopefully you're making your way in here. Um, please let me know that you're here. Please do share. Um, nice to hear your feedback or your comments in 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 this context. Um, how you feel about it, and do you think it makes sense or do you think it don't, and why on either side of the fence? So I think you have the right to think. Most people will agree. You have the right to think. I think you. I also believe you have the right to speak. You have the right to think. You have the right to speak, and you have the right to do. If you agree with me, I would appreciate it if you give me a couple yes. Why yes, yes. If you don't agree with me, um, I would like to see the no's, and maybe we could we could make a count on how many no's and how many yeses uh, to to get this discussion going. But I think you have a right to think, and I think you have the right to speak, and I think you have the right to do. Like I said earlier, those things come with great responsibility. It comes with accountability, um, and you have to be prepared for that. But you must not shy away from taking up this opportunity to learn. As I said earlier, we talk about people are afraid um, to do things because one, they think too much about wanting to be successful, or they think too much about the possibility of failure, and they are not focusing on the opportunity to learn valuable lessons in this moment or in these moments that are in front of them. You know, obviously by now people will know that I love the game of football. It's my passion. It's not something that I do, it's something that I live um, because I've put in the time, and this is what I love. And I believe that every opportunity that I have to coach, to speak, to run sessions, it's an opportunity for me to learn. So I don't worry too much about, you know, obviously you have to think about all aspects, players, where they are, and it's not a lack of empathy. It's you have to be, if you are honest and committed to what you're doing, you have to be authentic, and you have to want to take those risks. And because it's coming from a place of authenticity. Now, if it's coming from a place of the way your priority is mixed up and it's from a wrong place, then you need to consider some of the things you're doing, because you're starting off treacherous. But if you are thinking about the right things and you are obviously trying to make the right actions, and you have the right and your priorities are in place, excuse me, you have to be willing. You have to be willing to put yourself in those moments, in those situations where it's not about success or failure, but it's about the opportunity to learn. And one of the things that you must understand is, you young players, you young adults, don't limit yourself when it comes to your ability to think for yourself. You have the right to think. Thinking is a very important thing, because I remember, uh, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You should never give up that right. As scary as it is, because you will obviously feel some pain in taking that right. You will probably lose some friends. You will lose family members. It don't matter. You should never give up that right to think, because as a man thinketh, not as a man allows someone to help them with their thinking. No, as a man thinketh, individual thinketh, ownership, responsibility, accountability to think. And if you're not at that point where you can, you are not deliberative as you should be, and it's more of an instinctive, there must be situation there to drive your curiosity, to force you to think. Let your curiosity drive you in that direction, that thinking is an important thing and it should not be taken away. So on one side, you have the more deliberative people who are able to negotiate their actions and behavior. And then on the other side, they're instinctive. They're not there yet. They can't really negotiate what is this and what is that. But they also need to have that curiosity. Now, you're not going to be crazy. You're not going to say, all right, you think about how that fire will burn your hands. Go put your hands in there. Or obviously, no. But maybe you want to see how close they will get to the heat, or they will start turning around. And then maybe you grab them. Because they're not at that deliberative stage. But the curiosity must establish the right. That is a right to think for yourself. Because no one else can think for you. What will happen, that people will impose their thinking that is not you, is their uniqueness, because we are all born for that uniqueness. So when you talk about playing in a sport like soccer, which is driven by perception, perceptual speed, and perceptual awareness, it's about having and taking that ownership to think for yourself, to discover on your own. And that only comes through principles and learning principles, and learning all the technical components, and how it's used and how it's utilized in varying situations and moments. It comes from knowledge, from having that knowledge. But the most important thing is having that right to think. And my experiences with young players, young adult, even adult players, the moment they have to think, it's funny. The moment they have to think, you see how uncomfortable they get. to the point where they become very agitated, they become angry, and it's not funny, um, but it's disheartening because for a very long time they've been in this comfort of, oh, uh, I either do it however I want to do it, or I was told this is the way to do it, and this way was acceptable. Now I've become comfortable with doing what I was told, um, or doing it in a way where it's just about whatever the outcome is, the outcome is, rather than understanding what outcome I might need and preparing in a way that forces me to think about actions that can be downloaded, that can be used in the implementation phase. Basic things like, you see players who have never been, you know, who've never been asked to think, but they have been programmed in what to think. They've been programmed with what to think. It happens all around society. People are programmed what to think. Someone looks a certain way. Obviously, because you was told what to think, not necessarily how you want to think, but you were programmed what to think. In a split second, there's an idea or a perception about that person. In the soccer environment, it is so compromised and it's so destructive that people don't wait to justify or to be objective in their thinking, because they were already programmed what to think based on the environment. So now they don't have to think for themselves. They don't have to objectively make decisions and talk about things no anymore. They could just make an assumption because they were programmed what to think. Now go back to, you ask a player will ask you a question. Well, coach, what should I do in this moment? Okay. What are you seeing? Simple question. What are you seeing? Based on what you're seeing, what you think your action should be. If 9 and a half, I'm not exaggerating, 9.5 out of 10 will tell you, well, I don't know. They won't even think. Imagine that. You're empowering them. You are giving them a chance to make a decision that they will have ownership of, because that is their discovery. When you discover it, it's yours. It's embedded in you. When somebody tells you, you're likely to forget at some point in time. But when it's in you, it's in you. It's in you. It's everywhere with you. It's going to sleep with you. It's going to school with you. It's on the field with you, kids. It's in you. Somebody didn't give it to you. It's in you. So you have to think about it. You have to process it. That's why you do reflections. You do all those things, because you're trying to make this thing. You're trying to internalize this thing, and it comes through thinking. You have a right to think. They say, I don't know. So now they're looking for the answer, and not realizing that the answer that I will give you, you will still forget, because you don't even want to think. Then down the road, your mother, your father be like, well, there's no development happening. It's not happening, because what about you teaching your child the importance of thinking? What about that? How are you empowering them? How are you helping them to believe they have the right to think? How? When it's always somebody else's fault. What's somebody else not doing? Again, because it's easy to say that because the environment have programmed people what to think and not give them the right and making them feel they have the right to think. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You have a right to think. Thinking is such a powerful thing. The more you think, the more ideas come to you. Now, as these ideas come, you can now compartmentalize them and put them where they're supposed to be and get it wrong and then reorganize and get it right, and it's ownership and this is now my system, and okay, I could use this, okay, I can't use this, and this process is happening, it's an exciting thing, and nobody wants it. They don't believe they have a right to think. Think beyond. And it's not just thinking, but they're thinking in this little box right here that is called comfort. Because once again, it's not their right to think. They've been given what to think. So yes, they're thinking, but it's not their right to think. It's not the ownership of the uniqueness that you've been given to think. It's what you've been learned to think. And then now you are forced to have to abolish that and take the ownership, and it's nah, this don't make sense. This don't make sense. So how somebody thinks, that's what they support. That means that's who they are. How somebody vote is how they think. It's who they are. So you should never worry about um, people when they, like coaches, players leave them and they go down the road, and you understand the thinking of that individual, and you see how they get connected with that, and you worried, and you like, this person is this. No, you should respect and recognize that they have the same spirit, they have the same mind, they have the same thinking, so they connect with each other. Why are you worried? You should be glad that they're disconnected from you, because that's confusion. As a man thinketh, you have the right to think, and you must be given that right to think. You must take the ownership of that. Don't shy away from it. You have the right. Don't let somebody teach you what to think, but give you the ability to think for yourself. Be there as a support. But they said also empathy could make people very, they could make them very disabled. It could make them very dependent, because they know every time they do something, someone is there to always plug them out, and they don't have to think themselves. They don't have to think their way through the situation and become stronger and become better. There's nothing better than watching yourself overcome things that you struggle with. There's nothing better, because you were willing to think through the process when things didn't seem right, things didn't seem good. You were look like you're going downhill, but you said, you know what? I will think. I have the right to think. I am not where I am. I am not who I want to be. And where I'm at right now is not, I know it's not a representation of me. So I need to think. I have the right to think. I don't need to let what is in front of me, what is happening to me, what I'm doing, be my final destination. No, it's if you just take that ownership and you say, I have the right to think, Because as a man thinketh, there's something there that you're missing, that you're not thinking about, that is moving you farther and farther away from your gift. You were born to play soccer because there's something that is in there that when you think about it, it empowers you and it bring about transformation in not just your life, but people around you all over this world. You can change, you can encourage and inspire others because you were willing to think. You wanted that right. And you have it. Don't let nobody take it away from you. It's a good time to have a quick break to bring you the RNK Just Clean Learning Corner. And it's a good time for you to think and use this as, okay, starting the process of, how should I be thinking now about my behaviors and my action when it comes to being a high performer? We'll be right back. So what we're seeing in modern day football is the 11 and the 7 comes inside to make the back 4 compact, which allow the 3 and the 2 to utilize space on the side, allowing the 10 and the 8 to get up the field and add more numbers into the attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Teams are defending with 3. Teams are defending with 4 based on where the ball is. But I want to look at a specific thing here. When the ball starts in the middle, the 4 becomes a 2 and the 3 slides in. And they switch the ball and they play the ball to the 3 and the 2 becomes an extra midfielder. Okay? So it becomes now a box in the middle. Remember, you have 3 in the middle. They now have 4 in the middle. Welcome back to the Coach Kayo Show. This is your live podcast, and it's Saturday. Please do share if you're on, if you will come on later, if you are going to listen at a later time, whatever you do, please do share. Please do share. We're talking about you have the right. You have a right, and if you're now joining, we make the 3 very important rights that you have: the right to think, the right to speak, and the right to do. But we move forward, and you have a right to speak. This is one that going out the door very, very quickly. There's no greater time. There's no time now than before that you cannot speak. You cannot say anything. You cannot. You don't have a right to express yourself. You don't have a right to speak about your own beliefs and where you stand and what you stand for. For years, for centuries, people had the ability to speak and to say with no with no accountability, because that was their right. But that right is not given uh, to every individual. Like I said, a right don't separate you from accountability and repercussions when it's um, when it's necessary, when it's appropriate. But it seems like you don't have a right to speak. You know, you say things that make people uncomfortable, certain people uncomfortable. Uh, psh, your life could be over. But those very people, position of power, they have the right to speak. SOC environment, what I've seen is you can't speak the truth. You don't have the right to speak the truth. You have the right to try and balance the truth. Still trying to figure out what that balance is. Because before us is truth and there's lies. There's no in between there. So if you're not speaking the truth, then you are speaking lies. So you're oftentimes asked to you have no right to speak the truth. But guess what? You have the right to speak lies. I'm telling you. You have the you have the if you speak the lies and it sells the right things, you then have the right. But the truth, you don't have no right. And the one thing about the right to speak on the left side or the right side, or the right side or the wrong side, wherever you stand in, things germinate through speaking. I want you to know that. So, just like I like to use it, the seed in the ground, because it is the greatest example of growth and how growth happens. It's God's greatest example to me. You cultivate a thing, it will grow. But that seed don't tell you when it grow. You have an estimated time, but you can't be sure. You have to continue to do what you're doing to watch that thing grow. And that's what speaking does. So just like you speak the lies, things can germinate through that. And it takes a while. Because like life, like everything else, life is about seasons. Life is about seasons. And more young people are afraid, or they believe they don't have the right to speak because it's not a representation of what is common or what is trending. And their voices are stilled by parents, by coaches, by people of influence. If you say that, you're gonna get in trouble. I know it's the truth. Have you ever experienced that? Somebody said, "I know what you're saying is the truth, but if you say that, you can get in trouble." So what is truth? You might say, "Well, the right to speak the truth." Well, what I believe, because you're speaking from a place of what you believe. So why don't I have that same right? Why are we not allowing young people to have that right? But we could speak lies and it germinates. Things germinate through what we speak. There's a famous passage of scripture that says, uh, if you decree a thing, it shall come to pass. Speaking is important. And having that right to speak, and that right is so important. Once you could tell someone what to say, but if that person says it and it's not their right in what they want to say, then they decreeing a thing. Woe be unto them if that thing is not what they want. I don't believe in myself. Uh, you know, my parents told me I'm wasting my life running behind soccer and playing soccer. That's not a life. And they are repeating those things and they decreeing it and then wonder why they're struggling, but they will not say you're struggling because you're decreeing those things and you're living them out. They will say, you see what I told you? That guy is a liar. That coach don't make no sense. Oh, that coach just want money. You remember, this whole soccer thing is just money. It's pay to play. But you didn't remember when they were decreeing the very things that you put into their own mouth. They didn't have the right to speak life. They didn't have the right. You took that right away. So the right that they want to speak positivity and say, I can do it. I have to work hard. I have to be diligent. I have to be intentional. I have to make sacrifices. I have to go through the process to get to where I need to get to. Just like the diamond, just like the gold, it needs to go through a process so that it can look beautiful at the end. You say, no. You say no. So that right is taken away. And now they're speaking things that, if those things are cultivated, then they will produce whatever it's supposed to produce. People, young people are speaking. Young soccer players are speaking. And we could speak verbally and we could also speak non-verbally. So what are you listening to? What right have you given so that you don't miss the opportunity to cultivate that right to speak? You have a right to speak. And if you still your voice, then you are unable to decree. And if you're unable to decree, then nothing can come to pass. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Speaking is very important. The right to speak is very important. Now you might be afraid, but what shall be in the end? The latter will be greater. You must desire that right to speak. Because when you decree a thing, it shall come to pass. Whatever that thing is. It's either going to come to pass the way it should be because it's purpose, or something going to come to pass. The word that you say might come right back to you and it will do what it was intended to do. Like I said, none of these rights come without accountability. So you have the right, but sorry, what am I doing? You still have the responsibility. Trying to get extra comfortable. You still have to face the accountability. So you're not omitted from the responsibility because you have a right. But you need that right. You need to have that right so that you can progress in life. And it's so important to utilize that right to speak your truth. They will take it away from you. Anything that you're doing, there's an opposite force. Anything. excuse me, you're attacking, the opposite force is defending. You're defending, the opposite force is attacking. You're in transition to defend, the opposite force is transition to attack. It don't matter what you're doing in life. It don't matter what you do in life. You can't escape. You cannot escape that they will always be in opposition to what you're doing. If you're doing good, if you're doing bad, you can't escape it. So it's important to have that right to speak things that and to decree things without fear, but with accountability. But you should take that right because there's power in that right. There's power in having the ability to speak. It's life and death in the power of the tongue, and those that love it will eat the fruits of it. So there's an accountability there. It don't mean when you speak, if you speak the wrong thing, you have the right. So you better watch your mouth. But you should take that right. You shouldn't move out. You shouldn't get scared now. And what you should be scared of is the reverence. And when you use your mouth, how are you using it? But you need that right because that same right empowers you because you shall decree a thing and it shall come to pass. You love the game of soccer. You should be able to speak it without fear, without doubts, without what is going to happen to me 10 years from now. Who knows? You could plan how much you want. Many are the plans of a man's heart. But at the end, what about the present? Why are you so afraid to speak into the atmosphere about where you are now? Why are you so scared to speak? Because you're worrying too much about how you will fail and if you will fail and what will happen to you 5 years. How do you know you're going to even live to see 5 years? How do you know? You're worrying about 5 years so much that you can't even speak life into today. You can't. But you could speak negativity so much. So much. You coaches, ask a child, what you think you did well today in practice? It's like they can't figure it out. You say, what you think you did bad in practice today? They start speaking, they could call 50 different things. Their voice haven't been trained. They haven't been trained to speak life. They've been trained to speak negative because if it don't look good, the negativity is the first thing that comes out. So now the right to speak life it's non-existent. The right to speak life. They're speaking. And they have the right to speak. But too many times in a reflection, a child can't tell you two things they're doing well. Even when you ask the question, they will, before you even ask about what you could do better, they put two or three in that after saying one thing they did well. It's like, hold a second. I didn't ask you what you didn't do well. I asked you what you did well. They haven't been trained. They haven't have the right. It sounds like a voice is in them, programming them how they should speak. There's no freedom. There's no right to speak. Finally, so I can let you go. Just overall, you have the right to do. You have the right to do. You have the right to do. Faith without works is dead, and hope is not a strategy. You have to do. You have to take ownership and step in to what you believe in. There's no failure. That's why it's important to find your purpose. So your doing is your opportunity for growing. Let's say it again. Your doing is your opportunity for growing. You have to do. You have to believe you have the right to do, because that is where the growth is. There's so much fear. People will plan. They plan this whole life out. I plan to be this good player. I plan to play high school. I plan to be an academy player. I plan to be a professional player. And they get all of these planned. But when it comes to the do part, they're limited. They don't feel they have the right to do it all the way. They have reservations. They're like, I'm gonna do this. Oh, I'm doing too much of this. Oh, I'm doing, I think I need to do this. And they don't feel like they have the right to, I could do it all. I could do it all. I could give my all to this. They're doing it very sparingly. They're doing it with limits, but they want the whole. They're doing it with limits, but they want the whole. They're doing it with limits because they don't believe they have the right to do the whole. So they're given that right once again to just do this amount, and if it don't happen at this time, then you go do something else. I'll give you something else to do, not what you're supposed to do, not what you were born to do, but I will give you something else to do, what I think, my unique self, what I was born to do. No, I will give you that because I believe that is best for you. I will take away your right, give you my right, and then you're supposed to be right. No. You have the right to do because you're unique. People tune out what they have the right to do because they don't believe they have the right to do it. It's a great time. If you don't think for yourself, if you don't believe you have a right to think, if you don't believe you have a right to speak, and you don't believe you have a right to do, you're taking away what God has given to you. And you're giving yourself to something that obviously will not end up well. Because God gave us that right. He gave us that right, that we should speak life. We should have faith to move and do what we are required to do through purpose. And we need to think in our hearts what our purpose is, so that we can become what we were born to become. Don't give that right up, because you're giving yourself to an ending that you might not appreciate. Stay blessed and have a good night and a good week.